again. So first we will talk about what is the purpose of a group discussion. So you see, when business schools are vetting you for admissions and they're trying to find out if you're an appropriate candidate or not, there are certain levels of, there are a few things that they want to consider before selecting you as a perfect candidate. And after the examinations and after looking at your resume, after looking at your profile and all the information that you've furnished for them, the final two stages, the group discussion and the personal interview, are the ones which will let them figure out if you're a good fit for their school or not. Now, if you do a little bit of research online and if you look at the websites for the schools that you're applying for, you will discover that there is a lot of information that they give you regarding the kind of school that they are and the kind of image that they want to portray to the public. Now, in keeping with that image, they also expect the candidates to be prepared in the same spirit and with the same information, and even to espouse the same kind of values that they espouse as a school. And this does not even contain itself to only the Indian B schools, it goes across the world. Any business school would be very proud to have you as part of their alumni when you go out having been part of a club or a society or even a committee that did something else to represent their school. So when they call you for a group discussion and when they inform you that you have made it through the next stage and pretty much the final stage, the kind of mindset that you want to start thinking about is the mindset of being part of that school and not just being part of a B school. So let's start by talking about why at all it is a stage at the final selection stage, the group discussion I mean. Why do they need to see you perform in a group before they see you perform in an interview? Because most of you would agree with me, and I kind of say it a little liberally, but you can tell a lot about a person by just meeting with them face to face, maybe in a panel. I'm talking about the personal interview. So when you have an interview, a lot of the experienced faculty are available. Some of the people from the HR are also available at the interview, and they'll be able to find out what kind of person you are and what makes you nervous or what makes you what makes you happy, what you're comfortable with, and so on and so forth. So why is it that they have a group discussion before the personal interview? So let me quickly take you through a couple of the concepts and the misconceptions about it. The first thing, the reason that they have a group discussion before the personal interview is to also make you a little more comfortable about talking and talking about different topics. So as you may already know, there is no limit to the kind of topics that you can have for a group discussion. So the reason that they never make it public and the B schools never say that we are going to have a political discussion or a social discussion or a religious discussion or what have you, is because they want to see what kind of spontaneity you have, what kind of general knowledge base you have, and how quickly you can summon that when the need arises. So that's a very general way of thinking about it, that okay, we're going to sit in a room and we're going to have a discussion. That's fine. Now how do you start preparing for the group discussion? So for that you need to know what you need to prepare. Okay, you cannot simply just say that, okay, I know about a lot of things, I'm just going to go in a discussion and I will rule the discussion. This, as we will talk about in subsequent videos, is a rather negative way of thinking about preparing for a discussion, because if you go in with this kind of an aggression, you also become subject to becoming too aggressive when the discussion is going on, and that's not okay. So going back to my original question, how do you start preparing for a discussion? So first you prepare for content, and in one of the later videos we will talk about how to nail the preparation content. But before that, the mindset. Now, in a discussion, roughly the process is that you will be put in a room with about 7 to 12 people. I think that's the maximum that you can have in a group discussion in Indian B school context. Those 7 people will be arranged in a kind of a conference semicircle, or maybe in line, or just simply in chairs sitting in a circular kind of structure. And there will be a moderator. Now, lately there have also been moderators which are digitally present and not physically present, but that should not make a difference to you as long as you're able to get the topics and as long as you're able to understand them. So once you're sat in the room, you might be given about 3 to 4 minutes to maybe introduce yourselves to one another and kind of become comfortable. Some of the schools will allow you to have a pen and a paper or some sort of writing materials. Some others may not allow it. So please never prepare yourself thinking that you will always have your notes with you. Okay, be more prepared to deal with the content as and when it's given to you. Like I was saying, you might have some time to prepare, or you may just be addressed by the moderator right away. So the moderator would be a very minimal presence, and they will simply tell you this is what you're going to talk about. You will have this much time, and then they will tell you if they will be pinging you in the middle or they will be pinging you in the end. And by pinging, I mean having some sort of a bell, some sort of a signal to indicate that you are half time in or that you are full time in. Once the moderator gives you the topic, the general rule is that you will have about a minute to think about it, and that's when you will start feeling a little nervous. And once again later I will tell you how to not become nervous about such things. But once you get the topic, you will have a few minutes, or maybe just a minute, to think about the topic and prepare the kind of content that you are going to deliver in the discussion. Once the minute is over, the moderator will either give you a signal or say you may start, and then you will start. Now, one careful thing that you have to keep in mind: sometimes the moderator themselves will choose whom they want to start the group discussion with. And in those cases, sometimes it's seen that people who are a little more aggressive or a little more willing to begin the group discussion kind of just jump in and say whatever they were going to say anyway. So hold your horses and make sure that you've heard the moderator correctly. If they point to one person and they're supposed to start the discussion, don't be so aggressive and suddenly just jump in and start. Now, once the group discussion is in order, of course, there is no control over what's going to go on in that animal house, and you will be your own master. And we will talk about how to not give in to your base instincts and become more aggressive or become more willful and so on and so forth. But for now, just understand that this process of 10 to 12 minutes in which you will be completely on your own, with no guidance and nobody to moderate you literally, more than what you say, it'll also depend on how you look, how you sit, how you behave with other people, and when you say something, how you say it. But let's talk a little more about the process. So once you, there might be a couple of points, a couple of moments in the group discussion where it becomes a little too loud or a little too raucous and people become a little quarrelsome. At that time, the moderator may choose to interfere and say, please quiet down, please calm down, or let us all discuss it in a much better way. I would say it's a good piece of advice to kind of listen and keep an eye out or keep an ear out for the moderator in case they want to speak to you. Because at that time, it's a big plus point, it's a big brownie point if you are the one who listens to the moderator and kind of relays that message to the group. Because that shows that you are not so het up, so completely lost in the emotions of having a discussion and having yourself heard, that you have no idea what else is going on in the rest of the world, even with the person sitting next to you. Towards the end of the discussion, there are again two methods of bringing it to a close. Either the moderator will again give you a signal 2 minutes prior, so as to kind of indicate, let's move on towards the conclusion, or they might simply just say stop and you will just have to finish the discussion there. Of course, it mostly never happens that the discussion just kind of comes to a close, but people usually do get a hint, a signal that let's start now thinking in terms of conclusion. And if somebody is so prepared, they might even get a conclusion within the time. So that's a little bit about a process of discussion. The kind of topics that you get for most group discussions are wide-ranging, and there is no there is no comprehensive list that I can give you at this point. But what you can do for yourself when you're preparing is go to various websites and look for content, look for people who have shared their experiences in blogs, in all sorts of social media content, and figure out what kind of topics are doing the rounds. Because mostly it's not so abstract that you have no idea what to make of it. And if it is to do with something literal, something socio-political, then it will probably be something that you are very comfortable thinking about, or something that you have recently heard. So, for example, I get a lot of my students who ask me what happens if I just don't know anything about that topic. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, I don't think that's a possibility, because you're a graduate, or you will be one soon, and it is safe to assume that if you're preparing for a competitive examination at a national level, you've been reading newspapers and dealing with social media and just generally talking to people. So if you get a topic, for example, let's say about the Paris attacks. Now, some people may know a lot of detail because they may have been reading up on it. Some others may not know a lot, but they will still definitely know about the fact that there were some attacks in Paris recently. So later we will also talk about how to manipulate the content, but for now all I want to tell you is that never be nervous, or never make yourself unnecessarily nervous about the content and what to say about it. If it's an abstract topic, we will talk about how to deal with it, and if it's a knowledge-based topic, then I will tell you how to prepare for it. But there is no such thing as an incredibly difficult, impossible to think about topic. That doesn't happen. Let me tell you a little bit about how and on what grounds you are being assessed when you're speaking in a group discussion, when you're participating. Now, you're in a group of people who are at the same level of preparedness and at the same level of qualification and eligibility, if not more or less. It is up to the people who are observing you, including the moderator, to figure out what makes you stand out. And be that as it may, it is still a lot up to you to show them, to showcase your best skills at that time. Now think of it in this way, that this group discussion is kind of a macrocosm to what you will be when you actually become part of a B school. Okay, you will be part of a classroom, of course. You will also be part of your smaller group within the classroom. And then if you are an extracurricular kind of person, then you will also be parts of clubs and communities and societies and so on. Now, the schools are not just looking for people who are outspoken, who are extroverted, who are comfortable in social scenarios. Yes, they love all of that. Everybody does. But they're also looking for that kind of an X factor. They're kind of looking for somebody who can hold their own, and somebody who's respectful, who knows how to present their views correctly and politically correctly, more importantly, who do not resort to devices like sarcasm and insult when they are challenged. People who can deal with a little bit of pressure, a little bit of challenge, and still come out affirmative and positive about it. So that's actually a lot more in terms of the assessment that you will be looking at, instead of just looking at how much this person knows and how well they were able to speak about it. So when you are thinking of how I will be assessed, a good thing is to start thinking about it in terms of how you have discussions in general. So try this if you can. Get in touch with friends who are honest and who are sincere and who do not shy away from giving you feedback. And have a couple of discussions with them about, I don't know, a film that you might like, or a controversial actor or actress, a controversial topic from anywhere really. Kejriwal, for example, everybody can talk about that. And sit together and have a good discussion for about 10-12 minutes, and tell your friends to give you a lot of space to talk. And once that discussion is over, ask them how they felt about you. Did they feel that you were coming on too strong? Did they feel that you were becoming, imposing, or you had a little bit of aggression, even in your tone? Did they feel that they were challenged or they were being insulted at any point? And once you get all that feedback, don't react and don't justify. Think about it. Take your time, make notes, and then go home and reflect on how you represented yourself. Because you see, your friends are generally much more used to liking you in any context. So if they come out and tell you that yes, you were aggressive, or yeah, I'm not sure that this is how you would say that, then you want to listen to that because that's good feedback. Strangers will not tell you. Strangers will just maybe make a face, or they will send some kind of a subliminal signal, and the moderator will catch on to that. So you don't want that to happen. So before that, you prepare by kind of having your own mock discussions at home. If you get along with your parents well, and if you have good discussions, you can also do that. But that's a good way of figuring out how you will be assessed and on what levels you need to work on yourself. Having a group discussion and a personal interview, these two very inclusive kind of levels, right at the final stages of selection, there's a certain rationale behind it that these schools follow. And that is that they want to put you in settings where you will be your most uncomfortable and then see how well you perform. Now, when you're sitting within a group of strangers and you've been given a certain thing to talk about without a lot of preparation, but with a certain amount of knowledge to back you up, there are bound to be certain things that you will experience that you may not be able to account for. That could be your behavior, that could be your knowledge, that could even be your language or your tone or even your facial expressions. So when you perform in a group discussion, your assessment happens on many levels which you are not aware of at the time. And in subsequent videos, we will talk about how to assess correctly the kind of expressions and the kind of body language that you espouse and that you express for other people, and of course how to study for discussions as well. But when elimination happens, it happens on these two counts, that either you were able to perform really well overall, or you had some really interesting points to say, even if you did not say them really well. Now let me expand on that a little bit. Sometimes I get students who are quite brilliant, who are quite intelligent and very well read, very well spoken, but because they've not been in the settings where they had to necessarily perform or be in the spotlight in a way, they're not comfortable going in a group discussion and saying, hey, listen, I'm here to talk and you must all hear me, or you must let me speak. They're just really scared about the whole thing, and the prospect of having to perform for people to show them how good they are, it scares them. So to them and to all of you who are that sort, I want to tell you that it's okay. Okay, it's okay not to be overconfident. It's okay not to be even that confident that you can have yourself heard. It's fine. In every group, you will find people who are super aggressive and people who are super polite, but you will also find people who are there to kind of sub-moderate the discussion. There will be someone who will just take it upon themselves to let everybody else speak and say, you have a point, why don't you say something? Or maybe they have had a point, they had their hand raised before, let them have a chance to speak, so on and so forth. But what you need to remember is that don't forget the things, the information that you have because of the fear that you experience for being in that spotlight. Don't do that. If you are an intelligent person and if you have something sensible to say, trust me when I tell you that they will hear it. All you have to do is say it once. Okay? Wait for a good moment, wait for a lull in the discussion, or just wait when the discussion is at a low point in the decibel, in the volume. And at that time, you can simply say it. You can say it to the moderator, you can say it to the discussion participants. Of course, don't directly look at the moderator a lot of the times, because then it feels like you're looking to them for guidance, and that's not a good policy. But at times when you are just not able to be heard, it is okay to look at the moderator, to kind of look for support and say that this is going out of hand and I would like to say something. So coming back to the original point, that sometimes it's okay not to be heard really aggressively, but the elimination will not happen on the basis of how loudly you spoke or how much you spoke, but what you spoke and in what manner. And that is what will again put you in a good light in terms of your personal interview, because when you're sitting in front of a panel and they've seen your group discussion or they've read notes from it, and they have you once again in the spotlight, and they have some matter to cross question you on. They know what ticks you and what gets you going, and also what makes you uncomfortable. So they might use that information to kind of put you in a stressful situation once again, or simply to just talk to you and say, hey, we noticed that you were doing that in the discussion, or that you weren't able to put your point across with a lot of force. So do you want to elaborate on that? So remember, they're not doing that to be mean to you. Okay, they're not criticizing you. That's not their point. They simply want to make you talk. Especially if you were not able to talk in the discussion, they just want to make you feel a little more comfortable and give you a little more space to explain what you couldn't in the discussion. And that's when they will see that, okay, this person really did have something to say, and maybe they just didn't have the opportunity. So the elimination is not happening on the basis of how much you speak, but what you speak and at what points.